All right, Coach Mason here with Dr. Dish Basketball. I have an extremely important person with me here today. Very happy to have his guest online today. Just overall a tremendous person. Not only that, really can think the game and help a lot of people. And I'm really excited to talk with him today. Jake, how are you doing?
I'm great. I appreciate you having me today.
Awesome. Well, I want to dive right in. I know for me personally, this is something that I'm extremely interested in, the mental aspect of the game. When I jump on podcasts myself, a lot of people will ask me about the mental piece of the game, and I try to give them as much as I can from my playing experiences, but I'm no pro at it. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, how you got started with it all, and give us a little bit of background information.
Yeah, so Jake Rauchbach started MindRight Pro, which is a program that helps players unlock performance from the mental side. I've been doing this for about 10 years for players all around the world, male, female, all different levels, middle school to, NBA players and national team players. And there's a long backstory for me, but I've been doing this work for myself for probably about 20 years now. So I've really mapped over the stuff that helped me and to now help the players that I work with. So it's my passion, it's my life's work, and I love doing this stuff.
That's awesome to hear. So me personally, we were just chatting about this a little bit before we jumped on here. I had a mental skills coach that came in back in 2006 when I was playing out in Northern Colorado. And we were talking a little bit about the benefits of it in preparing your mind and all that good stuff. When I was 18 years old, I didn't really take it too seriously. I know a couple players on our team did, and it really helped them out. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you do with players, specifically around basketball.
Yeah, great question. And you played at a really high level, by the way. So we're helping players be better versions of themselves. So we're really helping them unlock or tap into their higher potential. Now, I know that sounds ambiguous and maybe frou-frou, but there literally are next levels to performance. And a lot of players don't even realize that. Like, you'll have the star player who's like, man, like they don't fathom they can go, maybe they're shooting 40% from the three-point line. A lot of guys and girls don't realize you can go 45, 46, 47, above 50. Like, there are different levels in your brain when you unlock them, and allows you to really just skyrocket. So some of the stuff we do is much like meditation, and it's really focused meditation, if you will. So we're looking to really tap into, unlock pockets of the consciousness that, when you do that, really allows players to unlock performance. And we're seeing this, by the numbers. In process, we're seeing this by the numbers as players go throughout this sort of deal. So it's been an interesting thing.
That's awesome to hear. Now, one thing you kind of mentioned in there is confidence. I know a lot of players that I come and train, and the first thing that they'll talk to me is about the lack of confidence. And sometimes they'll say that's within themselves. Sometimes they'll say that has to do with their coach or their parent. Talk about how important confidence is, mental aspect of it, with sports in general.
Yeah, I think confidence is super important, and it needs to be ingrained as a habit. Like, we can all have confidence in different situations, but if it's not like a consistent thing, then when the rubber meets the road in the game and the lights are on, as you play, you're not gonna perform to the levels that you otherwise could have. So you need to ingrain, like, the goal is to ingrain confidence as a habit. And when confidence is a habit, then that's when those special experiences happen on the court.
Yeah, awesome. You know what? I have a specific example of that myself. So finishing up college in 2011, I was an All-American, had went to the Final Four, all that good stuff. And I can remember I was riding on a really high wave. My confidence was skyrocketed. I went into my rookie year, played in Germany near Frankfurt, had a tremendous rookie year, and was just very excited about my professional basketball career. And like I just mentioned, went and worked out with the Minnesota Timberwolves during the preseason, and ended up getting drafted in the D-League by the Dallas Mavericks. So I went down there, was super excited, was thinking, I'm going to do some amazing things, and quickly realized that, NBA basketball, even at the D-League at the time, is completely different than what I had imagined. Obviously people talk a lot about politics, but a lot of it is this super talented players. And so for me, being at the bottom of the food chain, I really had to work very, very hard to earn my keep. And that required me to take a step back as far as minutes, touching the basketball, getting shots up. And one issue that I faced is I went from being the star guy, the past 2-3 years, to now I'm kind of a role player coming off the bench. I got to make a corner shot. I'm barely touching the basketball. And going through that transition, it really was difficult for me. And my confidence went down, 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 down. So I've lived it myself. Talk a little bit about the consistency with, your confidence, and then also being mindful with that, with the ups and downs of a season. Because we know high school basketball players or sports in general, you're going to have a good year, you're going to have a bad year, you're going to get injured. Maybe your role increases and decreases. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Where did you play in Germany? Was it the BBL, Pro A?
So I played in Pro A for Web Mobile Baskets, Paderborn Baskets as they were called. I think that they're called something different now, but that was, I'm going to age myself here, but that was in 2011, 12. So
cool.
Frankfurt, yep.
That's awesome. Well, great question. So confidence is super important. Like you need, as I mentioned before, you got to make it a habit. And as you talked about going from, let's take the guy or girl that transitions from, let's say, high school to college or college to the professional ranks, like you're going to be hit with so many new inputs that you might feel good and you might feel like you're that guy going in. But, if you don't have a process in place to really go back to finding confidence when you do get hit, because you will get hit, because there's so many different challenges, as you talked about. Like, they are in the G League, everybody's trying to get out of the G League and age up, right? It's so competitive. So like you need to be able to if you go 0 for 5 in the game, right? Or your coach curses you out, or if you didn't get that call up and you thought you needed the call, maybe you see your boys getting called up. You're like, man, like I'm crushing it this season. Like you need to be able to come back to find ways to find confidence. Now, how do you do that? Well, there are many different ways, but essentially if you have a process when you wake up, you have a process, let's say before practice, before games, and even in game, to continue to bring yourself back to what allows you to feel confidence. Then when stuff jumps up and it doesn't feel good, like maybe you went 0 for 5 or you didn't get that call up, like you're like, yeah, man, that sucks, but like I'm going to bring myself right back. Like that's what continues to build confidence throughout the ups and downs and peaks and valleys. Because as you go higher in basketball, like there's rarely a straight line up. It's going to be volatility. So it's really how you manage the volatility and feeling is really how it speaks to not only your overall confidence, but it speaks to your process to provide you confidence on the way up. So if that makes sense, it's really important. Like I would imagine, and I don't know, I've worked with a bunch of players, but not all of them. But the really good ones get hit. They have the times, they had the days, the games, and the shots where they're terrible, right? But it's the ones that are able to literally pivot and get to the next play or the next game fast without carrying over all that other stuff in the past. That really separates them from all the rest. So I'm going to go back to habit and process. Like you got to have that as a player and as a coach. You got to be able to provide your guys, your girls, a way to have process so they can have confidence as they go throughout their progression.
That's awesome. So you mentioned a little bit about the coach and the player. Can you talk a little bit about how the mental training piece is similar for players and coaches, but then also different for players and coaches?
So for players, it's a lot more feeling based. As you know, like as players, I played not at a high level, but I played, it's all about feeling. Like it's about feel. You get feel, you have confidence. If you don't have feel, good luck, right? So I think for players, it's all about getting in flow and finding flow. When you have flow, you can build confidence. So you see, like, the old moniker, you see the first one go in, then, all right, I'm feel a little bit better. I get a little bit more confidence. So really it's however, as a player, you can start to feel in the flow of the game builds confidence. So it's all about feel when it comes to confidence for players. Now for coaches, it's a little bit different. We're not out there, playing a game anymore. We don't have to, we don't have to prepare physically like our guys and girls do. But I still think from the mental side, you really have to be able to find a way to be focused. And there has to be a point in time where in your game preparation process, that you find a point where, all right, I'm going to focus in no matter what, and everything else is I'm putting to the wayside. and I'm only focused on this. So like maybe it's pregame meal, right? Maybe it's the night before the game. You know, a lot of coaches are crabby right when they get on the bus from their school to, you know, 2 days before the game. So whenever you choose that point in time as a coach, you want to lock in and find focus, then that's the point where it builds confidence into the game. And I think that's really important. And as you know, that rubs off on players. When the coach is locked in and confident, the players are like, all right, we're ready to roll.
Yeah, I think everything that you said right there is 100% true. I mean, 110% true, because I think I've dealt with both sides of that as a player and a coach myself, and have had coaches as well that way. Talk a little bit about confidence in the pros. So a lot of younger players, they watch some of these top-notch players, the Kevin Durant's, the LeBron James, some of the best in the NBA. They see them super confident, you know, hitting big-time shots, so on and so forth. But what they don't see, there's a lot of guys in the NBA that are still trying to navigate and make their way up to that level. And what we know is confidence, you know, doesn't stop, or the lack of confidence doesn't stop or start at a young age, or end at an old age. Talk a little bit about the similarities from younger people lacking confidence, and how those things can creep in, you know, for college basketball players and also pro players as well.
Yeah, so like I'll give you an example. So a guy I worked with in the past who had played in the NBA for 6-7 years. I started working with him, and he was in a shooting slump, right? And we dove in deep with him, and he started talking about stuff when he was on the IR from, like, you know, when he played in previous years in the NBA. 65 games he was on the IR. Like, can you imagine? Like, he wasn't hurt, right? But he just wasn't playing. So like that really hampered his confidence. So like, you know, that was 5-6 years ago at the time when I worked with him. He was carrying that stuff over to now. So that was actually affecting the way he was shooting the ball now, right?
Right.
So, I mean, pros, man, like we act like pros have it all together. They don't have it all together. Like they've got so many moving parts. It might even be more complicated as a pro to figure it out than it is as a college guy or as a high school guy. So, you know, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but you got to go back to the process you implement. Like for a guy like that who's super talented, but in other pockets of his consciousness, he's not quite putting it all together. Like that process of honing a process on a daily basis will allow him to move through that stuff. Now, like younger guys and girls that are in high school and college, and the thing I see most is like they think that if they do a little bit of work, if they do a little bit of mental work, a little bit of encore work, that's going to carry them through for the rest of the season. They're going to just crush it. Like that never happens like that. The reason you had a good game is because you put in that week and a half of work. And then that usually generally what happens is, as you know, guys and girls will take their foot off the gas pedal and be like, I'm going to coast a little bit. They don't even mean to, but they just do.
Right.
And you're like, man, and they're like, coach, like, why am I not playing as well? Why do you think? Because you went away from your process, right? So the process builds confidence and focus in everything you need to perform well. And it's the same thing for pros. It's just they're a little bit more savvy in figuring out what works best for them. And they're also on the flip side, not sometimes not as, let me see if I can put this kindly. They're not as open to hearing that they've gotten away from the process when they have. So you kind of have to address them more sternly. And the younger guys and girls, you just kind of have to teach them because they don't quite get it yet, generally speaking, right?
Right. So you brought up a really good point. You talk about the process. You talk about trusting yourself, all these things. Now, one of the things that, again, a lot of players come and they talk to me about is decision making, right? Usually the kids that I've seen that are a little bit more confident in their skills and who they are, they make a lot of good decisions on the basketball court. A lot of kids that are a little bit passive, that are worried about making mistakes, so on and so forth, they make bad decisions on the basketball court. Talk about why decision making is important, first off, and then second off, talk a little bit about how you can mentally train to be a better decision maker.
So decision making, it's a great question. It comes all down to being present in the moment. Like if you're not think about those times, we all do it as people. We blank out, we zone out, we go somewhere else, and we come back to the present moment. We don't even know where we went. We just went somewhere else. Well, that's what happens in the games too. So like if you're not training yourself to be present moment through meditation and other types of mental stuff, mental skills, then when you get in the game, like if you're in a situation where you need to make a quick decision and you're not in your right mind and you're like not quite focused, and what do you think is going to happen? You're not going to make the optimal decision, and then from your decision making to your mind body reaction is not going to be as crisp. So like it really all comes down to being, I know it sounds super simple. It is simple, but it's not easy. Be present. When you're present, your decision making just starts clicking like that, and that's when instinct pops in, and that's when you take it all the way down the line. That's when you see guys and girls have they catch fire, and they'll go 10 for 10, or they'll have great decisions in pick and roll. They're always make the right decision to the corner. Like it's all about being present, and that directly affects your decision making in the game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I can remember, myself too, like you said. I mean, there have been times where I've been on the basketball court and it's like I'm in the zone. Like you just can't, every little thing that I'm doing is perfect. Like I'm reading the line, getting steals for dunks, I'm reading my defender, I'm in their head, knocking down shots. Everything feels so smooth. And I remember those days where I was in that zone where I just felt like I was unstoppable. And I remember after the game, I was just feeling so high, just on the game and myself. But likewise, I had days where it was just like I'd look myself in the mirror and say, should I even be playing basketball right now? Because I can't throw a rock into the ocean, or I just don't feel like I'm in good rhythm. And, like you said, there's so many ups and down flows in a game, in a season, in a career that players are going to have to go up and down, that adversity that they're going to have to face. And being sharp mentally is huge. I don't think people really understand how important it is to be sound mind-wise to have a lot of success. And with that, I know there's a lot of different players, a lot of different coaches and coaching styles out there. Is mindfulness and mental training, is it a one-fit-all, or can you be a different type of coach or player in this work for you?
Great question. So I think there's levels and probability to everything. And, I think, quite frankly, as the older generation ages out, the older coaches, I think the younger guys are more open to this sort of stuff. But I still see, in my experience, the older guys are starting to open up to it now too, because honestly, it's all about bottom line. Like if you don't win, if your players are getting better, and you're winning more, then you're going to be open to something that helps you, provide success and facilitate success. Now, to directly answer your question, there's levels to this. So basically, if you want to onboard 100% of like a mindfulness thing into your coaching program as a coach, your organization, by all means, you can do that. Now, if you want to add bits and pieces into maybe how you coach your players through a drill, or how you, go through pregame, or, whatever film, then you can do that too. So it's not like just a one size fits all. It's just like anything in life. It's nothing helps. One thing does not help everybody. That's why it needs to be tiers to it, and needs to basically be deployed and consumed in a fashion that people feel comfortable with and can really understand and resonate with. So there's different levels to it, to answer your question. And it's really based upon what's really best for the players, what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, I hear that. Now, even with Dr. Dish basketball, you talked a little bit about older coaches and being phased out, or having the ability to maybe change or evolve. I know in the shooting machine business, we have a lot of young coaches or newer coaches that are looking for any way to help benefit their players or benefit their team. And they look at our shooting machines and they say, hey, this is an opportunity for our players to get more shots up, to be accountable, to get better as a basketball player. Whereas you have some older coaches that are really stuck in their ways, never used the shooting machine, don't want to add it to the program or what we do. We're having success, and they're not really evolving. Talk a little bit about how it's important as both a player and a coach to evolve, not only in your own career, but just especially as a coach if you're in the game for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, man. Like, I think it's everything. It's paramount. If you're not evolving and seeing the market for what it is and what it's going to be, like, you're going to be left behind. I mean, we've all seen individuals, not only in basketball, but other sports and other genres of life, where they stuck with the same program. And yeah, that might have helped 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But if players are going home and using Dr. Dish, which they are, right, and they're getting their shots up and they have their own process through Dr. Dish, then why wouldn't you incorporate it into your overall program? Like, they're already used to it. They already like it. I think it's super important to evolve and tweak your process as a coach to evolve with what players like. Players don't like it. That's the most important thing. Like, I think the age of cursing guys out and being like, that shit's over, that's over with, right? That's over with. Like, you still have those guys, but in my opinion, in the next 15, 20 years, you're going to see coaches that connect with players and move the dial in a really genuine way. And I think what that comes down to is players have to trust, and actually like the work they're doing. So like, you have to evolve the process to really, so it fits in for what the players like and respond to.
Right. No, I hear that. And that's truthful. I'm 32 now, going on 33 here. And I think back when I was younger and playing, the most type of coach you saw usually was the yelling, the cursing, more of an authoritative figure where, it's a closed door policy. This is the way that it goes. And size fits all. And as I got older and progressed through college and professionally, I started seeing different coaches that were really looking to try to, unlock who I was as a basketball player. But the unique thing that I found was similar to what you said is they were able to adjust dependent on the players, right? So we had a lot of guys that, maybe needed a stern voice and they reacted well to that. And the coach was able to do it. And then you had other players that, if you yelled at them too much, they were going to shut down. And then other guys that needed to, have a watchful eye over them a little bit because they were running around. Talk a little bit again, on how important it is for coaches to have the ability to adjust depending on the different players, and what are some ways that they can do that?
Well, absolutely. And I guess what you talked about, Coach, is like, it was more peer-to-peer as you grow. You went to, Germany and the D-League and these sorts of things, right? As opposed to like, I'm the boss. It's more like, all right, man, I'm the coach, but it's more peer-to-peer. Was that right or no?
Yeah, 100%.
Repeat the question again. I forgot actually what you said.
So how important is it for a coach to be able to adjust to the different personalities and players within their team?
Yeah, so I think it's super important, and it goes to, the answer in our questioning from right before this question. Like, I think it's all about players and how they respond. And like you said, some players will respond to like getting on them in that hard coaching. But what I'm finding, and I'm sure you're observing too, is more and more players don't necessarily respond to that. So you're going to have to have different ways to approach each and every player that you have on your team. And each team from season to season has a different overall mentality. So you're going to have to find ways to unlock that brilliance inside each player in different ways. So again, around like evolving your training process, I think it's super important to evolve your coaching process too, to touch every player so that they can be the best that they can be.
Yeah, I hear that. I think one coach that's really good at that and has said openly that they try their best to be that way is Coach K. Been around for a lot of years, had a lot of different type of players, has seen guys, more old school players, 30 years ago, and now you're getting some of this younger generation with social media, so on and so forth. And he's a great example, in my opinion, of a coach that's been able to adjust, his coaching style, how he communicates to his players. And obviously we can see that there's a lot of success. Now, when we talk about success, one thing that you mentioned is you said unlocking brilliance or unlocking true potential. I know that you've worked with a lot of players and coaches on different levels. Talk a little bit about, the feeling a player will get after they've unlocked a piece of their game, that they've finally reached that highest level and they can feel it within them. Talk a little bit about maybe a story or two of a player coming to that realization and what it meant to them.
Yeah, so, think back, and I definitely give you an example, but think back to the time when you just started rolling in the game. You're like, I knew it was there. Like, I know it's been there, right? I don't know where it went, but now I'm accessing it. I'm not going to think about it too much because I'm enjoying it too much, right? And then you end up at the end of the game, you got 35 points, your team won, you're a great teammate, you're locked down on defense and all that sort of stuff. So what I find is players, so there was a player in Israel when I was coaching professionally. He had been struggling for the first, let's say, 15 games of the season. Great shooter, just struggling. And we were trying to get him going. And it's kind of like you're trying to just like start an engine, like trying to start it. And you're building momentum slowly. Then all of a sudden, like there's a point in which players, no matter what you're working on with players. It might be shooting, decision making, rebounding, leading, whatever it might be, that you're able to actually like poke through, and they're like, oh, this is what it feels like to be like awesome. So at some point, guys and girls that have these games where they, for this guy in particular, I think he knocked down like 5 threes in a row in the fourth quarter to win the game in the first division in Israel. And from there, like it broke the dam for the rest of the season. He started crushing it. So like, it's like that poke through. It's like that crescendo where like, man, like that's who I really am. It's like the better versions of themselves. They experience that, they feel what that feels like, and then they just start doing it more and more and more. So the bar might have went from, might have been set here as like a peak performance. Then they burst through and they're here like, oh man, what about up here, right? And then they start doing it and they set the bar higher and higher, literally by the numbers and by the stats they're putting out. So it's more of like a huge like crescendo of energetic feeling for these guys and girls. And then from there, their performance starts to just like skyrocket. You're seeing the numbers, the percentages just start to take off.
Right. No, I mean, I know how true that is. It's just insane. You're kind of speaking to me now. And I've been out of the game for, professionally playing now a little over 4 years, but everything that you say is bringing me right back to, where I was. And again, a lot of this stuff I didn't have access to. I didn't have, the resources necessarily myself, or I didn't know where to go. And I really wish that I would have tapped into it, because I really wish that it would have maybe put me on a different trajectory, even in my own career. Now, one thing that I talk a lot about with players is, their potential. They're maximizing their potential or being the best version of themselves on the basketball court. And for me, I live that way just in my regular general life. But also on the basketball court as well. I never knew if an injury was going to end my career or opportunity or so on and so forth. But I always wanted to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, hey, every day you went out there, you gave everything you had, you tried your best, you worked really hard, you had your ups and downs, but you faced adversity and you were able to get over that bump in the road. And for me now it applies a lot outside of life. Talk a little bit about how mindfulness and mental training is important for athletes, but how that will help them in their transition from sports into their regular lives.
I think it's everything. Like you just said, the way you approach your craft is the way you approach your craft. So if you're a basketball player and you're done for whatever reason and you transition to your next phase of life, like you're not going to take your basketball skills over, but you're going to map over your, I don't even want to call them soft skills, but your personality traits, your habits and routines. So if you don't have good habits and routines, that's what you're going to be in your next phase of life. But if you do, then you're going to as well. So a lot of players that I see that make the transition, whatever transition that might be, they take a lot of the way they prepare for games, the way they train, the way they are disciplined, maybe not staying up too late and eating terrible or whatever it might be. And that's all mindfulness. Like that's all discipline is mindfulness. Like if you're not disciplined, you can meditate for all you want, but you're not going to get much done because you're not disciplined in the rest of your life. So like it really comes down to the discipline I think you're talking about. I think players that move on to professional careers after basketball comes down to their focus and their discipline, and those guys and girls that can map over that stuff really, really excel like you're doing right now.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely can see the transition from sports and basketball and the things that I focused on, the accountability, hard work, teamwork, things of that nature, and how it translates now into, my day-to-day and me working with kids and, my coworkers and all that good stuff. And I think that that's why sports in general are so powerful, is because it can help you get that leg up or get you on your way to having sex. It's perfect. I mean, that's the way that I think that if you could get that vibe and that feel out of different things in life, I mean, yeah, you'd have a lot of successful people out here. But for us, I know Dr. Dish, when we're looking for people to add to our team, it's very, very cool if we can find a person that's played basketball, obviously, that wants to get into the field of what we're doing. But we're always looking for people that are great teammates, that are able to share credit, are able to say, hey, here's an obstacle in my way. I want to be able to get over it. I want to take ownership and get over it. because those are the people that are going to continue to keep pushing when times are tough, and they're going to be the ones that ultimately have a ton of success. So before we get out of here, I know that you've worked with a ton of high-level players and coaches, trainers all around the world. You coach yourself, and everything that you said on here has been spot on. Talk a little bit about, before we get out of here, what are some of your personal goals in your career and what you want to do for players and coaches?
Great question. So I want to be able to provide service to coaches and players. Literally, I know it sounds corny, but it is what it is. I want to help them be better versions of themselves. So with what I do, help as many players and coaches as possible be better. Because when coaches are better and they have more tools in their pocket, they can help their players and players become better, right? It's like the butterfly effect, right? So when it comes down to it, you talked about, I think, we're both talking about excellence. Excellence is really what it is. And that maps over, that's a mappable skill from basketball to professional life. I'm trying to help players and coaches be excellent in what they're doing. And that's really, really, that's the aim. And however that takes me, I'm open to it.
I hear that. Well, we're very fortunate to, have you be a part of what we're doing at Dr. Dish. We have some really cool things. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I'm excited that we're going to do working with you.
Me too.
Let people know out there where they can find you on social, your website. Give your information out so people can check you out.
Yeah, thank you. So you can follow me on Instagram at MindRight Pro, at MindRight_Pro. And then my website is mindrightpro.com. And Twitter is the same thing as Instagram. So I'll post a lot of stuff around mindfulness training and kind of the leading edge of this space. So tune in.
Yeah, you guys make sure to check him out. I mean, this guy is dropping nuggets left and right. He knows what he's talking about. And you're motivating me. I want to get out and get some shots to see if I can go pro again and take all the information you say. Definitely appreciate you taking the time and jumping on. Can't wait to chat again. You take care, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Let me see how I can